Good morning, dedicated aspirants, and welcome to today's UPSC Current Affairs Masterclass dated 4th July 2026. This session is designed for Mains 2026 and Prelims 2027 aspirants looking to integrate contemporary editorial analysis with static syllabus preparation. We will decode the critical 5, representing this week's most high-yield editorials and environmental policy overhauls. Topic 1 covers Judicial Technology under GS2 Polity, examining Supreme Court warnings on AI hallucinations, the SUPACE portal, and SUVAS translation software. Topic 2 addresses Technology Policy under GS3, covering UN Scientific Panel reports, the IndiaAI mission, and global governance gaps. Topic 3 covers Urban Planning under GS3 Environment, focusing on the Delhi Clean Air Project, GRAP, and ASHT management. Topic 4 examines Clean Mobility under GS3 Infrastructure, analyzing the PM E-Drive Scheme, Delhi EV Policy 2026, and battery swapping infrastructure. Topic 5 addresses Environmental Governance, covering CPCB, CACM, NAAQS standards, and global best practices from London and Beijing. This masterclass includes flowcharts, mind maps, interstate mapping, PYQ linkages, and prelims MCQs. Each topic will be presented with syllabus linkages, multidimensional analysis, and exam-relevant takeaways. Click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and share this video with your study groups. Let us begin with Judicial Technology. Segment 1, Judicial Technology and AI Integration. Structure and functioning of the judiciary, AI in judiciary, analysis and recent context. Recent institutional audits into technology deployment have brought the integration of machine learning within legal systems to the forefront of administrative discourse. While administrative digitization is highly welcome and represents a significant step toward modernizing judicial workflows, the unchecked scaling of automation necessitates deep structural scrutiny. The Supreme Court of India has issued an absolute warning against lower tribunals placing blind reliance on automated legal software. The Apex Court has set aside orders containing fabricated, hallucinated citations, ruling that unchecked software threatens judicial consistency and due process. For Mains 2026 aspirants, this topic is directly relevant to GS Paper 2 under the structure, organization, and functioning of the judiciary. The Supreme Court's intervention represents a landmark moment in establishing judicial guardrails against technology misuse. The concept of integration baseline refers to the minimum standards of technology adoption required for efficient court administration, which includes digital case management, electronic filing, and automated scheduling. The phrase administrative digitization encompasses the routine application of technology for non-judicial tasks like data management, while the deeper question of whether machines should assist in legal interpretation remains contested. For Prelims 2027, focus on the constitutional provisions related to the judiciary, the Supreme Court's powers under Article 142, the collegium system for judicial appointments, and the various technological initiatives of the E-Courts project. The Supreme Court's observation about fabricated citations represents a critical precedent that will shape India's approach to AI governance in the legal sector. Technology and Judiciary Understanding Artificial Intelligence Basics. To comprehend the challenges of AI in the judiciary, we must first understand the fundamental technology. Artificial intelligence is a broad engineering field mimicking human cognitive traits. Machine learning utilizes algorithms optimizing performance from raw data loops. Deep learning involves multilayered neural networks processing patterns. Generative AI relies on large language models outputting creative, syntactically standard text. Generative text engines run on probability matrices, optimizing for linguistic smoothness rather than factual truth. This structural feature causes them to invent highly convincing, plausible-sounding, but completely non-existent legal case names, precedents, and article citations. This fundamental difference between generative output and traditional digitized legal research is critical for judicial officers to understand before relying on automated outputs. For Mains 2026, this technical foundation is essential for constructing analytical answers. The phenomenon of AI hallucinations occurs because large language models are essentially sophisticated prediction engines that generate text based on statistical patterns rather than verified factual databases. When these systems encounter queries about specific legal cases, they may generate text that follows the linguistic patterns of legal citations without having any actual reference to verify accuracy. For Prelims 2027, focus on the difference between narrow AI and general AI, the concept of machine learning algorithms, the role of training data in AI development, and the emerging global discourse on AI safety. The terminology distinction between generative AI and traditional search systems is particularly important because it explains why conventional search engines with verified databases do not produce hallucinated results, while generative systems can. Aspirants should understand that the structural feature of probability-based text generation is what makes hallucinations inevitable in current LLM architectures. Technology and Governance, AI in Judiciary, Applications and India's Model. Examining administrative applications, AI facilitates automated case indexing, intelligent court scheduling, instant sorting of dynamic dockets, and cross-referencing vast digital archives. Global benchmarks show that advanced jurisdictions deploy targeted algorithmic predictive screening models to assist clerical review, though these are strictly restricted from standalone sentencing outputs. India has developed dedicated initiatives, including SUPACE, which stands for SC Portal for Assistance in Courts Efficiency, an AI-driven data aggregation tool designed to process facts, organize historical records, and assist judges by speeding up research workflows. The second initiative is SUVAS, the SC Vidhik Anuvaad Software, an indigenous machine translation engine translating bilingual legal texts, orders, and pleadings into localized vernacular languages to expand public access to justice. For Mains 2026, this topic demonstrates India's calibrated approach to judicial technology. The distinction between administrative applications and substantive judicial decisions is critical. Administrative digitization, including case indexing and scheduling, represents low-risk, high-reward applications where AI can significantly reduce pendency and improve efficiency. However, the use of AI for actual legal reasoning or sentencing remains highly controversial and potentially unconstitutional. The SUPACE and SUVAS platforms represent India's balanced approach, focusing on administrative support rather than judicial decision-making. For Prelims 2027, focus on the eCourts Mission Mode project, the various phases of eCourts implementation, the concept of digital justice delivery, and the role of the Supreme Court in adopting technology. The concept of algorithmic clerical review refers to the use of AI for preliminary document review and categorization, which differs fundamentally from substantive legal analysis. Aspirants should understand that India's model prioritizes access to justice through vernacular translation while maintaining human oversight in all substantive judicial decisions. Ethical challenges, strategic challenges, and ethical landmines. The deployment of automated systems introduces three critical systemic risks. First, algorithmic and data bias. Deep learning models trained on historical case data risk permanently hard-coding past socio-economic and regional prejudices against marginalized groups into software code. Second, the black box accountability vacuum. Deep neural networks operate without verifiable, step-by-step logic chains, making it impossible to audit how a system reached a specific conclusion, directly violating the basic legal right to a reasoned decision. Third, compromising judicial independence, replacing human evaluation, equity, and compassion with rigid, proprietary automated risk scores compromises judicial independence and threatens individual liberty. Relying on such systems fundamentally alters the judicial reasoning process. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic that integrates ethics, technology, and constitutional values. The three challenges represent distinct dimensions of AI risk in the judicial context. Algorithmic bias is particularly concerning because it can perpetuate and amplify historical injustices, as AI systems trained on past decisions may learn discriminatory patterns embedded in those decisions. The black box accountability vacuum directly conflicts with the legal requirement for reasoned orders, which is a fundamental component of natural justice. The right to a reasoned order is a well-established principle in Indian jurisprudence, requiring courts to explain their decisions in writing. Compromising judicial independence through automated risk scores raises constitutional questions about separation of powers and the judiciary's role as a check on state power. For Prelims 2027, focus on the constitutional provisions related to equality under Article 14, the principles of natural justice, including audi alteram partem and reasoned orders, and the concept of judicial review under Article 32 and Article 226. Aspirants should understand that the right to a reasoned order is now considered a fundamental component of Article 21, making AI-generated judgments potentially unconstitutional. Institutional solutions, way forward and policy safeguards. Four critical institutional solutions emerge as policy safeguards. First, mandatory human-in-the-loop architecture, enforcing strict statutory guidelines ensuring that AI models serve strictly as administrative support, leaving core legal interpretation to human judges. Second, sovereign data protection and verification. Developing closed, independent legal datasets trained exclusively on officially verified government law records to eliminate model hallucinations. Third, mandatory self-certification guidelines, forcing practicing legal teams to legally swear that all citations used in court submissions have been manually verified through official state law gazettes. Fourth, capacity building. Launching specialized digital literacy modules for judges under the National Judicial Academy to build critical auditing skills for emerging legal technology. For Mains 2026, this represents a comprehensive framework for responsible AI adoption in the judiciary. The human-in-the-loop architecture principle is fundamental. AI should augment human decision-making rather than replace it. The concept of sovereign data protection addresses the concern that AI systems trained on foreign data may reflect foreign legal traditions and biases. The mandatory self-certification guidelines place the responsibility for verification on legal professionals, ensuring that AI outputs are not accepted at face value. Capacity building through the National Judicial Academy represents the institutional mechanism for ensuring that judges can effectively evaluate and oversee AI systems. For Prelims 2027, focus on the National Judicial Academy, the concept of judicial training, the role of the E-Courts Committee of the Supreme Court, and the various capacity-building initiatives for judicial officers. Aspirants should understand that these safeguards represent a balanced approach that embraces the benefits of technology while preserving the core values of the Indian judicial system, including human dignity, natural justice, and reasoned decision-making. UPSC Corner, Value Addition, and PYQ Linkage. This slide provides critical value added for mains answers. The GS4 ethical value of algorithmic bias versus natural justice can be used to address systemic challenges and ethical dimensions of administrative technology in the public sector. eCode's linkages demonstrate institutional efficiency by showing how technology-driven reforms streamline procedural workflows and secure wider socio-legal access. A model mains question for 15 marks and 250 words asks, the integration of generative artificial intelligence in the judicial process can improve administrative efficiency, but it risks compromising due process if left unchecked. Evaluate the need for strict guardrails around automated legal technologies in India. The Prelims practice question asks which portals are explicitly launched by the Supreme Court of India to implement technology-driven efficiencies, with options SUPACE, SUVAS, Samarth, and Nirnay. The correct answer is 1 and 2 only, as Samarth handles higher education digitization and Nirnay tracks rural local bodies. The PYQ linkage refers to the Mains 2022 GS2 question on the role of the eCourt's mission in ensuring effective access to justice in India. For Mains 2026, this synthesis slide helps you understand how to integrate different syllabus areas. The ethical dimension under GS4 connects technology with broader questions of justice and human values. The institutional efficiency linkage shows how eCourt reforms have a measurable impact on access to justice. The model mains question structure provides a template for answering similar questions in the actual examination. For Prelims 2027, focus on the difference between technology initiatives across different government departments, the specific functions of SUPACE and SUVAS, and the previous year's question patterns regarding judicial reforms. The exam utility of analytical mapping is to synthesize technical solutions with structural realities, addressing administrative gaps and technological literacy in judicial reform, which is a sophisticated answer writing approach that can significantly improve your scores. Segment 2: Responsible AI Governance and Policy. Regulatory Briefing and Policy Transition. Topic 2: Responsible AI Governance. United Nations independent scientific panels have called for a total rethink of global technology policy, warning that frontier large language models are outperforming existing international rules and guardrails. Government agencies face a complex regulatory dilemma. They require deep empirical evidence to design safe regulations, yet that evidence struggles to keep pace with the technology's rapid evolution. The fundamental challenge is that technology is evolving faster than regulatory capacity, creating a dangerous governance vacuum. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic under GS2 International Relations and GS3 Science and Technology. The regulatory dilemma described here represents one of the most significant governance challenges of our time. When technology evolves faster than regulatory frameworks, the result is either regulatory failure leading to harms or premature regulation that stifles innovation. The concept of frontier large language models refers to the most advanced AI systems that are pushing the boundaries of capability, which creates the highest risks and the greatest regulatory challenges. For Prelims 2027, focus on the international governance frameworks for AI, the role of the United Nations in technology policy, the concept of regulatory sandboxes, and the various national AI strategies being developed globally. The phrase regulatory dilemma refers to the fundamental challenge of evidence-based regulation in a context where the technology being regulated changes faster than evidence can be gathered and analyzed. This is a critical concept for understanding contemporary technology governance debates. International Relations and Global Governance, Global AI Governance Architecture. Examining established multilateral regimes, the United Nations has an independent panel mapping agentic risk, safety gaps, and data lock-ins. The OECD principles provide a values-based framework targeting human-centric systems and transparency. The Group of 7 manages the Hiroshima AI process, which addresses copyright risks and tracks deepfakes. The G20 Rome Accord and Global Partnership on AI drive shared metrics. However, the fragmentation challenge is significant. Major international tech frameworks are caught in a tense dynamic between the United States' hands-off commercial focus and China's state-directed model. This fragmentation leaves developing nations exposed to sudden technology cutoffs and regulatory gaps. For Mains 2026, this topic is highly relevant for understanding international cooperation in technology governance. The 4 major multilateral frameworks each have different strengths and approaches. The UN Independent Panel focuses on scientific assessment of risks, while the OECD principles emphasize values-based governance. The G7 Hiroshima process addresses specific risks like deepfakes and copyright, while the G20 and GPAI focus on practical metrics and shared standards. The fragmentation challenge represents a critical obstacle to effective global AI governance, as different national approaches create regulatory arbitrage opportunities and expose developing nations to the risks of technology dependence. For Prelims 2027, focus on the various international organizations involved in technology governance, the key features of the Hiroshima AI process, the OECD AI principles, and the role of the G20 in setting technology standards. The concept of bipolar geopolitical dynamics refers to the US-China technological competition that shapes global AI governance, creating challenges for middle powers like India that must navigate between these two poles. Science and technology policy focus, India's AI ecosystem and regulatory anchors. India's AI ecosystem rests on 3 key pillars. First, the IndiaAI mission, a comprehensive national strategy backed by heavy public funding to build sovereign computing clusters, establish AI research centers, and secure clean local datasets. Second, Project Bhashini, a flagship translation initiative using natural language processing to open up high-utility digital services in localized regional languages, cutting across traditional literacy barriers. Third, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act acts as a major baseline law, forcing technology platforms to secure explicit consent before using personal information to train large models, providing a foundational layer of user data protection in the AI ecosystem. For Mains 2026, this topic demonstrates India's comprehensive approach to AI ecosystem development. The IndiaAI mission represents the strategic infrastructure dimension, focusing on building domestic capabilities in computing and research. Project Bhashini represents the application dimension, focusing on using AI for social inclusion and digital divide reduction. The DPDP Act represents the regulatory dimension, providing the data protection framework necessary for responsible AI development. For Prelims 2027, focus on the IndiaAI mission and its components, the Bhashini platform and its language coverage, the key provisions of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023, and the role of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. The concept of sovereign computing clusters refers to domestic high-performance computing infrastructure that reduces dependence on foreign cloud services. Aspirants should understand that India's 3-pillar approach combines strategic capability development, social application, and regulatory framework, which represents a comprehensive model for AI governance in developing country contexts. Ethical governance and policy, ethical issues, and structural vulnerabilities. 3 critical security challenges and systemic risks demand attention. First, the shift to agentic systems. Technology is rapidly moving toward autonomous agentic networks capable of executing multilayered tasks in physical environments without human oversight. Second, proliferation risks. Advanced frontier models show dangerous capabilities in combining specialized codebases and biological records, making guardrails mandatory to prevent the creation of bioweapons. Third, data exploitation. Monopolistic web scraping by tech giants exploits private information without paying local creators or respecting consumer privacy, highlighting severe vulnerabilities in current digital ecosystems. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic that connects technology policy with security and ethics. The shift to agentic systems represents a qualitative change in AI capabilities, as these systems can take actions in the physical world rather than just providing information. This creates new categories of risk that require new regulatory approaches. The proliferation risks associated with AI and biotechnology represent a serious national security concern, as the same AI capabilities that accelerate medical research can also be used to develop bioweapons. Data exploitation by tech giants represents a market failure where the value created by user data is not fairly shared with the users themselves. For Prelims 2027, focus on the concept of dual-use technologies, the Biological Weapons Convention, the concept of data sovereignty, and the various global initiatives for responsible AI. The term agentic networks refers to AI systems that can autonomously plan and execute complex tasks, which represents a significant evolution from earlier AI systems that required human direction for each action. This is a critical concept for understanding the future trajectory of AI development and its implications for governance. National AI Policy Roadmap, Way Forward, a unified strategy. The way forward involves a unified strategy with two key elements. First, establishing sovereign infrastructure, building independent, government-backed public cloud infrastructure to shield national data from changing foreign export rules. Second, enforcement mechanisms, including enforcing strict algorithmic audits by forcing tech companies to publish clear breakdowns of their data sources, safety guardrails, and carbon footprints before releasing models publicly, and implementing tiered tariffs by exploring time-of-day tariffs and differential electricity pricing through regulatory commissions to manage the heavy power demands of data centers, ensuring sustainable growth of the AI sector. For Mains 2026, this represents a forward-looking policy framework that aspirants can use in answer writing. The concept of sovereign infrastructure addresses the critical concern that foreign export controls or sanctions could disrupt access to cloud computing services. The algorithmic audit requirement represents a transparency mechanism that allows regulators and the public to understand how AI systems are developed and what risks they may pose. The tiered tariff approach for electricity pricing reflects the recognition that AI development is energy-intensive and requires innovative approaches to power management. For Prelims 2027, focus on the concept of digital sovereignty, the regulatory framework for data centers, the environmental impact of AI, and the role of the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. Aspirants should understand that sovereign public cloud infrastructure represents a new dimension of national security that extends beyond traditional military concerns to include digital infrastructure. The concept of carbon footprint disclosure for AI models is emerging as an important aspect of environmental governance in the technology sector. UPSC CSE Mains Prep, UPSC Notes and Mains Answer Framework. A powerful quote from the UN Secretary-General states, "The world cannot govern what it cannot understand." This captures the fundamental challenge of AI governance. The PYQ linkage refers to the Mains 2024 GS3 question, what are the main socio-economic implications of the rapid rise of generative AI in developing countries like India? The Mains Answer Framework suggests the following. Introduction defining the unique challenges of agentic AI governance, body paragraph 1 highlighting infrastructure issues, including power consumption and data collection models, body paragraph 2 mapping India's strategic responses, including IndiaAI, Bhashini, and DPDP, and the conclusion calling for an agile, international regulatory approach ensuring equitable access for the Global South. The prelims practice question considers two statements. First, the Hiroshima AI Process is an OECD initiative regulating deepfakes. Second, the DPDP Act contains explicit provisions regarding user data ownership for training foundational AI models. The correct answer is neither 1 nor 2, as Hiroshima AI is a G7 initiative, not OECD, and DPDP is a general framework not specialized for model training pipelines. For Mains 2026, this synthesis slide provides a complete framework for answer writing. The Mains answer framework template can be adapted for various questions on technology governance. The introduction should establish context and define key terms. The body should be divided into thematic paragraphs covering different dimensions. The conclusion should provide a forward-looking perspective that addresses both opportunities and challenges. For Prelims 2027, the practice question demonstrates the importance of precise knowledge about institutional mechanisms. Aspirants must clearly distinguish between OECD, G7, G20 and other international frameworks and understand the specific provisions of domestic legislation like the DPDP Act. The phrase foundational AI models refers to large-scale AI systems that serve as the basis for various applications, which is a critical term in contemporary AI discourse. Segment 3. Urban AIR Pollution and Governance. Topic 3. Delhi Clean Air Project. The Delhi government has notified its annual winter pollution control plan, locking in permanent regulatory measures from 1st November to 28 February. Core directives include an absolute ban on dust-generating demolition and outdoor construction, with exemptions for vital public transport works. Additionally, non-BS6 commercial vehicles registered outside Delhi are turned away. Offices are forced to implement 50% work-from-home options during high-risk winter months. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic under GS3 Environment and Ecology. The Delhi Clean Air Project represents one of the most comprehensive urban air pollution management efforts in India, and its design provides valuable lessons for other metropolitan areas. The seasonal nature of the plan, focusing on the November to February winter months, reflects the meteorological understanding that winter inversions and low wind speeds create the worst pollution episodes. The vehicle filters restricting non-BS6 commercial vehicles from outside Delhi represent an important interstate dimension that addresses the regional-aged nature of pollution. For Prelims 2027, focus on the Bharat Stage Emission Standards, the Commission for Air Quality Management, the Graded Response Action Plan, and the various pollution control measures for Delhi NCR. The concept of dust-generating demolition being banned during winter months reflects a source-specific approach to pollution control that targets the largest contributors during peak pollution season. The Indo-Gangetic Plain Topographic Trap, Air Pollution, Regional Dynamics. Two categories of drivers shape the air pollution challenge. Meteorological factors include extreme winter temperature inversions that trap pollutants close to the ground, compounded by low wind speeds that prevent dispersion. Anthropogenic emissions include concentrated industrial zones, vehicular density, stubble burning cycles, and heavy construction dust that heavily contribute to the crisis. The aged conundrum is critical. Air pollution does not stop at political boundaries. Managing Delhi's air quality requires a coordinated regional strategy spanning Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Rajasthan, recognizing the interconnected nature of the regional AIST. Transboundary cooperation is geographically mandatory. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic that demonstrates the geographical and political dimensions of environmental governance. The concept of the AIST is fundamental. An AIST is a geographical area where air quality is affected by common sources and meteorological conditions. The Indo-Gangetic Plain represents one of the most challenging AISTs in the world due to its topography, meteorology, and population density. The temperature inversion phenomenon occurs when cold air near the ground is trapped under warmer air above, preventing the vertical mixing that normally disperses pollutants. For Prelims 2027, focus on the geography of the Indo-Gangetic Plain, the concept of AISTs in pollution management, the role of stubble burning in North Indian pollution, and the interstate coordination mechanisms for environmental management. The recognition that pollution does not respect political boundaries is a fundamental principle of environmental governance that has implications for federal cooperation in India. Environment and Ecology, National Clean Air Programme, NCAP, Architecture. The NCAP was launched by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change as a long-term, time-bound national strategy targeting a 20% to 30% reduction in particulate matter concentrations across non-attainment cities. The program includes source apportionment studies, shifting municipal funding toward scientific source apportionment audits to identify the exact contributors to local pollution rather than relying on generic data. It also includes institutional linkages, tying central city development grants directly to measurable improvements in local air quality metrics, ensuring accountability and targeted funding allocation. For Mains 2026, the NCAP represents India's comprehensive national approach to air quality management. The concept of non-attainment cities refers to cities that do not meet the national ambient air quality standards, and they are the primary focus of the NCAP. The 20 to 30% reduction target is ambitious and time-bound, requiring significant improvements in pollution control measures. The source apportionment approach represents a shift from generic to specific pollution management, recognizing that different cities have different pollution profiles and require tailored interventions. For Prelims 2027, focus on the National Clean Air Programme, the role of the Ministry of Environment, the concept of non-attainment cities, the PM2.5 and PM10 standards, and the institutional mechanisms for air quality management. The institutional linkage between grants and air quality metrics represents an innovative approach to environmental governance that uses financial incentives to drive performance. This is an important example of results-based financing in the environmental sector. Environmental pollution and degradation, Delhi's Clean Air Plan and regulatory levers. The Graded Response Action Plan is an emergency framework that triggers increasingly strict economic restrictions based on real-time spikes in air quality index bands. The transport mandate includes phased electrification requirements, enforcing mandatory zero-emission commercial transport requirements, starting with light goods fleets and public buses. Infrastructure and efficacy include smog tower interventions, deploying large-scale mechanical air purification infrastructure at major traffic choke points, though long-term field efficacy remains under study. For Mains 2026, this topic demonstrates the regulatory toolkit available for air quality management. The GRAP represents a dynamic regulatory approach that adjusts restrictions based on real-time air quality measurements, providing flexibility in implementation. The phased electrification mandate for commercial transport addresses one of the major source categories for urban air pollution. The smog tower interventions, while visually impressive, have faced scientific criticism regarding their actual effectiveness in improving air quality at the city scale. For Prelims 2027, focus on the Graded Response Action Plan and its various stages, the National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring Program, the Electric Vehicle Policy Framework, and the various technological interventions for air purification. The concept of AQI bands triggering different responses represents an evidence-based approach to pollution management. Aspirants should understand that the GRAP is primarily reactive, with restrictions triggered after pollution levels reach certain thresholds, which is different from proactive forecasting-based interventions. Governance and implementation, strategic challenges and structural solutions. Critical enforcement and coordination gaps persist. The enforcement gap, managing violations across millions of scattered vehicles and construction sites, severely strains limited municipal monitoring teams. The multi-agency coordination challenge. Overlapping jurisdictions between municipal bodies, state departments, and central boards cause persistent policy delays and hinder effective implementation of clean air initiatives. The stubble biomass dilemma is critical. Farmers require low-cost, immediate mechanical solutions to manage crop residues without burning. Viable policy alternatives include the rapid scaling of the PUSA decomposer or providing direct capital subsidies for mechanical happy seeders. For Mains 2026, this topic provides critical insights into the implementation challenges of environmental policy. The enforcement gap is a common problem in environmental governance, where the scale of potential violations far exceeds the monitoring capacity of regulatory agencies. The multi-agency coordination challenge is particularly relevant in federal systems like India, where environmental management involves multiple levels of government with overlapping jurisdictions. The stubble burning issue represents a classic case where economic constraints of individual farmers conflict with broader environmental goals, requiring innovative solutions like biodecomposers or subsidized machinery. For Prelims 2027, focus on the role of state pollution control boards, the coordination mechanisms for environmental management, the agricultural residue burning issue, and the various technological solutions for crop residue management. The PUSA decomposer is a fungal solution developed by the Indian Agricultural Research Institute that accelerates the decomposition of crop residues, while happy seeders are machines that allow direct seeding into standing crop residues, eliminating the need for burning. UPSC revision and PYQ linkage, environmental governance, GRAP and CAG. The constitutional anchors are critical. Article 21 establishes the right to a clean environment as a fundamental right to life. Article 48 is a directive principle to protect and improve the environment. The prelims practice question on GRAP considers, first, it is implemented proactively, triggering bans 48 hours before estimated spikes. Second, the Commission for Air Quality Management is the sole statutory enforcement body for GRAP across the NCR. The correct answer is to only, as GRAP is primarily reactive based on real-time measurements, rather than a proactive forecasting model. The PYQ linkage refers to the Mains 2015 GS3 question on the concept of aged management in solving the persistent winter air pollution crisis of northern India. The model mains question for 15 marks asks: evaluate the effectiveness of seasonal emergency interventions like GRAP against long-term structural policies in managing urban air pollution in India. For Mains 2026, this synthesis slide is essential for your preparation. The constitutional anchoring of environmental rights under Article 21 is a landmark development in Indian jurisprudence, with courts recognizing that the right to life includes the right to a clean environment. Article 48 provides the directive principle guidance to the state, while Article 51 places the fundamental duty on citizens to protect the environment. The main answer structure for this type of question should include the debate between crisis mitigation through reactive measures like GRAP and systemic, wide, long-term policy structures. For Prelims 2027, focus on the key articles related to the environment in the Indian Constitution, the role of the Commission for Air Quality Management, the structure of the Graded Response Action Plan, and the difference between proactive and reactive pollution control measures. The recognition that GRAP is reactive rather than proactive is an important distinction that aspirants must understand for both prelims and mains examinations. Segment 4, Electric Vehicle Policy and Clean Mobility. Topic 4, Electric Vehicle Policy and Clean Mobility. Delhi EV Policy 2026 and Centre's 10,900 rupees Cr PM E-Drive scheme. The Delhi government has launched its comprehensive Delhi Electric Vehicle Policy 2026, setting up a specialized model approval committee under the Transport Department to handle direct purchase and scrappage incentives. This state initiative aligns with the Centre's flagship PM E-Drive scheme, which stands for Electric Drive Revolution in Innovative Vehicle Enhancement, operating with a total national budget of 10,900 crore rupees. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic under GS3 infrastructure. The Delhi EV Policy 2026 represents one of the most progressive state-level electric vehicle policies in India, providing a model for other states to follow. The PM E-Drive scheme represents the central government's comprehensive approach to accelerating EV adoption across the country. The alignment between central and state policies is critical for effective implementation, as EV adoption requires both central support for technology development and state-level incentives for consumer adoption. For Prelims 2027, focus on the PM E-Drive scheme and its components, the Delhi EV Policy 2026, the role of the Ministry of Heavy Industries in EV promotion, and the various financial incentives for electric vehicle adoption. The concept of scrappage incentives is important. These are financial benefits provided to consumers who scrap old, polluting vehicles and switch to electric vehicles, which serves both pollution reduction and EV adoption objectives. Policy and infrastructure, EV ecosystem in India, current landscape. The EV value chain life cycle has 4 components. Upstream components include cell procurement and advanced chemistry battery assemblies. Midstream infrastructure includes single-window DTL grid connections and dealer chargers. Downstream demand push includes declining DBT subsidies and road tax exemptions. Recycling and extended producer responsibility include EPR systems and unique identifiers that trace batteries. The sectoral reality shows that while electric 2 and 3-wheelers are seeing fast commercial adoption, heavy commercial transit and long-haul trucking still face high upfront technology costs, slowing broader sectoral transition. For Mains 2026, this topic provides a comprehensive understanding of the EV ecosystem. The 4-stage value chain analysis is critical for understanding where India has competitive advantages and where it faces challenges. The upstream segment is dominated by imports of critical minerals, while the midstream and downstream segments have significant domestic capability. The sectoral reality demonstrates that different vehicle categories have different adoption trajectories, with 2 and 3-wheelers leading due to lower upfront costs and simpler charging requirements. For Prelims 2027, focus on the concept of extended producer responsibility, the role of Delhi Transco Limited in EV infrastructure, the direct benefit transfer mechanism for subsidies, and the various components of the EV value chain. The concept of unique identifiers for batteries refers to traceability mechanisms that allow regulators to track batteries through their life cycle, from manufacture to recycling, which is critical for environmental management of battery waste. Aspirants should understand that the EV transition is not uniform across vehicle categories and requires segment-specific policies. Infrastructure and clean energy initiatives, government initiatives and subsidy models. The PM eDrive scheme replaces the older FAME programs, focusing subsidies on electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers, e-ambulances, and e-trucks through an electronic voucher system. The Delhi EV Policy 2026 offers various incentives. Electric two-wheelers receive tiered direct subsidies capped at a maximum vehicle price of 2.25 lakh rupees, designed to decline over 3 years to encourage early adoption. Scrappage bonuses provide financial incentives up to 1 lakh rupees for electric cars priced under 30 lakh rupees, tied to scrapping old, polluting BS4 or older vehicles. Tax exemptions include 100% lifetime road tax and registration fee exemptions for eligible models registered within the capital. For Mains 2026, this topic demonstrates the policy architecture for EV promotion. The replacement of FAME with PM eDrive represents an evolution in India's EV policy framework, with greater focus on commercial vehicles and public transport applications. The electronic voucher system for subsidy delivery represents a modern approach to subsidy administration that reduces leakages and improves targeting. The tiered subsidy structure for two-wheelers, with declining incentives over time, is designed to encourage early adoption while ensuring fiscal sustainability. For Prelims 2027, focus on the FAME India scheme history, the PM eDrive scheme components, the Delhi EV Policy 2026 incentives, and the various subsidy mechanisms for electric vehicles. The concept of scrappage policy is important. It creates a market for old vehicles by providing financial incentives for scrapping, which both removes polluting vehicles from the roads and creates demand for new electric vehicles. This is an important example of circular economy principles applied to the automotive sector. Clean mobility policy, strategic challenges facing clean mobility. Critical challenges require attention. Raw material import vulnerabilities, reliance on foreign suppliers for critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and nickel exposes India's battery supply chain to global geopolitical tensions and price volatility. Range anxiety and charger scarcity. The lack of widespread fast charging and uniform battery swapping networks keeps buyers cautious about switching from internal combustion engine vehicles. Grid stability and peak load management. Mass overnight EV charging can overload regional power distribution grids if not balanced with smart charging technologies. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority analytical topic. The critical minerals vulnerability is a strategic concern, as India depends significantly on imports for lithium, cobalt, and nickel, which are essential for battery manufacturing. The concept of range anxiety refers to the fear that an electric vehicle will not have sufficient charge to reach its destination, which is a significant barrier to adoption. Grid stability concerns arise because simultaneous charging of many EVs can create peak demand that exceeds the capacity of local distribution infrastructure. For Prelims 2027, focus on the critical minerals for battery manufacturing, the geographical distribution of lithium reserves globally, the concept of battery swapping, the role of the Ministry of Power in grid management, and the various initiatives for critical mineral security. The term battery swapping refers to a model where consumers exchange depleted batteries for charged ones at swapping stations, rather than waiting for their own battery to charge, which addresses the time constraint issue for commercial applications. Aspirants should understand that the EV transition involves not just vehicles but also the entire supporting ecosystem, including charging infrastructure, battery supply chains, and grid management. Infrastructure and development way forward, policy recommendations. 3 policy recommendations provide a roadmap forward. First, the infrastructure mandate, mandating dealership infrastructure, forcing manufacturers to install public charging stations at every dealership, with dedicated points for both light and four-wheel vehicles. Second, regulatory streamlining. Implementing single-window clearances and designating state transmission companies like Delhi Transco Limited as nodal agencies to simplify power connections for private charging operators. Third, circular economy, enforcing battery waste traceability, using unique battery identifiers and strict extended producer responsibility norms to build a sustainable local battery recycling ecosystem. For Mains 2026, this represents a forward-looking policy framework. The infrastructure mandate addresses the chicken and egg problem of EV adoption and charging infrastructure. Consumers hesitate to buy EVs without charging infrastructure, and charging infrastructure providers hesitate to invest without EV owners. The single-window clearance mechanism reduces the regulatory burden on charging infrastructure providers, accelerating deployment. The battery waste traceability and EPR framework addresses the end-of-life management of EV batteries, which contain toxic materials and valuable minerals. For Prelims 2027, focus on the concept of extended producer responsibility, the role of state transmission companies, the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan, and the various regulatory frameworks for EV infrastructure. The concept of EPR in the battery context requires manufacturers to take responsibility for the entire life cycle of their products, including end-of-life recycling, which is a critical element of the circular economy framework. Aspirants should understand that successful EV transition requires an integrated approach addressing infrastructure, regulation, and end-of-life management. UPSC Value Addition, Reports and Case Studies. A key Niti Aayog recommendation states, transitioning 100% of delivery aggregator fleets and e-commerce logistics to electric mobility options by 2030. The PYQ linkage refers to the GS3 2023 question, evaluate how India's clean mobility policies align with its international climate commitments under COP26. The model question for 15 marks and 250 words asks, to successfully shift to electric vehicles, India must move beyond consumer purchase subsidies and focus on building robust charging infrastructure and secure critical mineral supply chains. Discuss with reference to the PM eDrive scheme and state-level EV policies. The Prelims practice question asks, under PM eDrive, which vehicles receive direct demand incentives? Options, private E2W, private e-cars, commercial E3W, L5, and e-ambulances. The correct answer is 1 and 4 only, as private e-cars are excluded and the commercial E3W L5 window has closed. For Mains 2026, this synthesis slide is essential for answer writing. The Niti Aayog recommendation on delivery fleets is a specific data point that can strengthen your answers on EV policy. The PYQ linkage helps you understand the type of questions that have been asked and the analytical approach required. The model question structure demonstrates how to address multidimensional questions involving technology, infrastructure, and policy. For Prelims 2027, focus on the specific vehicles covered under PM eDrive, the difference between FAME and PM eDrive, the various categories of electric vehicles, and the policy framework for electric mobility. The distinction between private and commercial vehicles in subsidy frameworks is important. commercial vehicles are often prioritized because they have higher utilization and can demonstrate the viability of EV technology more quickly. Aspirants should understand that the PM E-Drive scheme has specific inclusions and exclusions that must be memorized accurately. Segment 5, Environmental Governance and Conclusion. Slide 26, Urban Air Pollution, Primary and Secondary Pollutant Classifications. Three categories of pollutants are critical. Primary particulates are fine and coarse respirable particles known as PM2.5 and PM10. These particulates penetrate deep into the respiratory system and are primarily driven by anthropogenic sources such as road dust, open burning, and active construction sites. Gaseous emissions include chemical emissions like SOx, NOx, CO, and O. These gaseous pollutants originate directly from vehicular combustion, thermal power plants, and industrial processing facilities. Secondary pollutants compound the crisis. For instance, ground-level ozone is formed through complex photochemical reactions between volatile organic compounds and nitrogen oxides under sunlight. UPSC syllabus connections include GS3 Environmental Pollution, Statutory Institutional Frameworks, and GS2 Judicial Interventions. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic under GS3, Environment. The distinction between primary and secondary pollutants is fundamental to understanding air quality management. Primary pollutants are emitted directly from sources, while secondary pollutants are formed through chemical reactions in the atmosphere. The example of ground-level ozone formation through photochemical reactions is particularly important because it demonstrates how multiple pollutants can interact to create new hazards. For Prelims 2027, focus on the major air pollutants, the difference between PM2.5 and PM10, the sources of various pollutants, the formation of secondary pollutants, and the health impacts of air pollution. The term volatile organic compounds refers to organic chemicals that evaporate easily at room temperature, and they are important precursors to ground-level ozone formation. Aspirants should understand that air quality management requires addressing both primary emissions and the chemical reactions that create secondary pollutants. Urban air pollution and governance, environmental monitoring metrics. An analytical framework of AQI categories and health impacts includes the following: 0 to 50 good with minimal health impact, 51 to 100 satisfactory with generally acceptable conditions, 101 to 200 moderate, where sensitive groups may experience breathing discomfort, 201 to 300 poor, creating health alert with high baseline risks. Above 400 is severe, with the entire regional population likely to be severely affected. NOx statutory limits. The National Ambient Air Quality Standards enforce strict statutory limits to establish baselines and protect public health. 12 key pollutants are monitored: PM2.5, PM10, SO, NO, CO, NH, O, PB, as, Ni, benzene, and benzo, A, pyrene. Time-weighted intervals show that standards are monitored over 24-hour and annual average periods. Nationwide monitoring establishes baseline measurements to prevent the deterioration of atmospheric conditions. For Mains 2026, this topic is critical for understanding air quality standards. The AQI categories provide a simplified way to communicate air quality information to the public, with clear health implications for each category. The NOx represents the regulatory framework that defines acceptable pollution levels and requires monitoring and action. The 12 key pollutants represent the comprehensive scope of air quality monitoring in India. For Prelims 2027, focus on the AQI categories and their health implications, the 12 pollutants monitored under NOx, the difference between 24-hour and annual standards, and the role of the CPCB in air quality monitoring. The concept of time-weighted averages is important. Short-term standards, 24-hour, address acute exposure risks, while long-term standards, annual, address chronic exposure risks. Aspirants should memorize the 12 pollutants monitored under NAAQS, as this is a frequently tested topic in prelims. Environmental compliance, institutional framework, and statutory enforcement hierarchy. 3 levels of institutional frameworks govern environmental compliance. Apex national level CPCB functions under the Water Act of 1974, providing technical guidance to state-level boards, coordinating state-level compliance actions, and formulating national standards. The regional level for NCR has CACM, a purpose-built body with dedicated geographic focus over the National Capital Region, possessing broad statutory powers to penalize and curb regional pollution and empowered to issue direct mandates that completely override conflicting state directives. State-level SPCBs function as field enforcement machinery, actively monitoring industrial compliance, issuing mandatory operating consents, and directly prosecuting and penalizing local entities violating environmental laws. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic under GS3, Environment. The 3-tier institutional framework represents the federal structure of environmental governance in India. The CPCB sets national standards and provides technical guidance, while state boards handle field-level implementation. The CACM represents a special-purpose statutory body for the NCR, created because the regular institutional framework was insufficient to address the unique pollution challenges of the region. For Prelims 2027, focus on the Central Pollution Control Board, the State Pollution Control Boards, the Commission for Air Quality Management, the Water Act 1974, the Air Act 1981, and the various institutional mechanisms for environmental governance. The concept of the overriding power of CACM is important. The Commission can issue directions that override conflicting state directives, which is a significant centralizing provision in a federal system. Aspirants should understand that environmental governance in India involves multiple agencies at different levels, with the CACM representing a special case for the NCR region. Environmental governance and policy. Environmental governance in India. The constitutional mandates include Article 48A Directive Principle stating, the state shall endeavour to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forests and wildlife of the country. Article 51A G is a fundamental duty stating, it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. The statutory base includes the Air Act of 1981, which governs the prevention, control, and abatement of industrial and urban air pollution, and the Environment Protection Act of 1986, which is the overarching umbrella framework for environmental protection and coordination. Judicial overlays include the Public Trust Doctrine, mandating that the state protect vital ecological resources for free public use, and the polluter pays principle, enforcing absolute accountability and mandating complete financial and ecological remediation. For Mains 2026, this is an essential synthesis topic that integrates constitutional law, statutory frameworks, and judicial principles. Article 48A represents the directive principles approach to environmental protection, guiding state policy without being directly enforceable. Article 51A G is unique, as it makes environmental protection a fundamental duty of every citizen. The statutory base provides the operational framework, with the Air Act of 1981 and the Environment Protection Act of 1986 being the most important environmental statutes. The judicial overlays represent the evolution of environmental jurisprudence through landmark court decisions. For Prelims 2027, focus on the constitutional provisions for the environment, the major environmental statutes, the key environmental principles, and the landmark Supreme Court judgments on environmental protection. The public trust doctrine and polluter pays principle are critical concepts that aspirants must understand thoroughly as they represent the philosophical foundation of environmental governance. The term public trust doctrine refers to the principle that certain natural resources are held by the government in trust for public use and cannot be alienated for private purposes. Urban air pollution and governance, pollution mitigation, analyzing global and domestic best practices. 3 case studies provide valuable lessons. London ULEZ case study. London's ultra-low emission zone successfully imposes daily financial charges on highly polluting vehicles entering the urban centre, utilizing automated license plate recognition networks for verification. Beijing Clean Air Plan. Beijing's 5-year Clean Air Action Plan effectively lowered particulate concentrations through a multi-pronged approach, shifting thermal power plants to natural gas, establishing strict regional vehicle quotas, and deploying integrated grid monitoring systems. Domestic Model Corporate Green Initiative. Private sector solutions showcase how housing societies and private complexes are deploying automated microgrid power configurations to significantly lower their reliance on local diesel generators. Key takeaway: analyzing global and domestic best practices provides critical case studies for effective pollution mitigation. While international public sector models enforce regulatory compliance, domestic corporate-led frameworks demonstrate how decentralized, clean technology can drive environmental stewardship from the ground up. For Mains 2026, this is a high-priority topic that demonstrates comparative governance approaches. The London ULEZ represents a market-based approach using pricing mechanisms to change behavior, while the Beijing Clean Air Plan represents a more interventionist approach using direct regulation and supply-side changes. The Domestic Corporate Green Initiative represents a decentralized, market-driven approach where private actors take voluntary action to reduce pollution. Each approach has different strengths and limitations, and the most effective pollution management often combines multiple approaches. For Prelims 2027, focus on the London ULEZ, the Beijing air pollution control measures, the concept of ultra-low emission zones, the role of natural gas in pollution control, and the various corporate sustainability initiatives in India. The term ultra-low emission zone refers to a defined area where vehicle access is restricted based on emission standards, with non-compliant vehicles facing daily charges. Aspirants should understand that successful urban air quality management requires a combination of regulatory mandates, market-based incentives, and private sector participation. Air quality governance, syllabus revision matrix, statutory frameworks versus field enforcement. 4 key points summarize this critical area. First, Prelims NOx targets. The 12 ambient pollutants monitored are PM10, PM2.5, SO, NO, CO, O, NH, PB, benzene, benzoylpyrene, arsenic, and nickel. Note that carbon dioxide is explicitly excluded from ambient NOx metrics. Second, strategic shift to ASHT-based governance. This replaces localized, restrictive municipal boundaries with unified regional atmospheric ASHT monitoring, which is essential for tackling transboundary pollution transport across political border lines. Third, Prelims practice MCQ. Which of the following is not monitored under NOx? Options: A. Lead and ammonia, B. Carbon dioxide, C. Benzene and arsenic. Answer: B. As CO is not part of the 12 ambient criteria pollutants. Fourth, Mains practice. Analyze the persistent institutional gaps between tough statutory bodies, like CAT, and weak field-level enforcement by state pollution control boards, and propose structural reforms for 15 marks and 250 words. For Mains 2026, this synthesis slide is essential for revision. The 12 NOx pollutants are frequently tested in prelims, and the explicit exclusion of CO is an important detail that aspirants often miss. The strategic shift to waste-based governance represents a sophisticated understanding of pollution management that goes beyond traditional jurisdictional boundaries. The mains practice question on institutional gaps between statutory bodies and field enforcement is a classic UPSC theme that tests your understanding of governance challenges. For Prelims 2027, focus on memorizing the 12 NOx pollutants accurately, understanding the concept of waste-based governance, the role of CAT, and the various statutory frameworks for air quality management. The exclusion of CO from NOx is because CO is a greenhouse gas regulated under climate change frameworks like the Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement, rather than an ambient air quality pollutant with direct respiratory health effects at typical atmospheric concentrations. Before we conclude, I want to remind all aspirants that the comprehensive notes for this masterclass are available for download through the link provided in the pinned comment and the description box below. The notes include all the factual data, analytical frameworks, PYQ linkages, and practice MCQs discussed in this session. I also encourage you to attempt the model mains questions in your answer writing practice and share your responses in the comments section for peer learning and feedback. Thank you for learning. Support our mission to deliver high-quality UPSC preparation materials. As we conclude this comprehensive masterclass on the Critical 5, I want to summarize the key takeaways. We have covered judicial technology and the Supreme Court's warnings on AI hallucinations, responsible AI governance and the global regulatory landscape, Delhi's Clean Air Project and the Regional AIST Challenge, the PM eDrive scheme and the EV ecosystem transformation, and the comprehensive environmental governance framework, including CPCB, CAT, and NOx standards. Each of these topics has direct relevance to your Mains 2026 and Prelims 2027 preparation, and the integrated approach we have used today demonstrates how contemporary issues connect with static syllabus components. To continue your preparation journey, I encourage you to take 4 actions. First, subscribe to our channel to join the community of serious aspirants and unlock comprehensive syllabus breakdowns, daily news analysis, and expert strategies designed for UPSC success. Second, like and interact with videos that help your prep, and leave your thoughts, query answers, and practice MCQ responses in the comments section. Third, share our lectures, revision slides, and strategy insights with fellow aspirants and study groups to build a collaborative learning ecosystem. Fourth, click the notification bell icon to stay updated and never miss critical syllabus updates, test series, or live revision sessions. Remember, consistency in your preparation, depth in your analysis, and integration across syllabus areas are the keys to success in the UPSC Civil Services examination. The Critical 5 framework we have used today is a model for how you should approach your entire preparation. Identifying high-yield topics, connecting them with the static syllabus, analyzing from multiple dimensions, and practicing with both prelims MCQs and mains answer writing. I wish each one of you the very best in your Mains 2026 and Prelims 2027 examinations. May your dedicated preparation translate into the success that you have been working tirelessly to achieve. Thank you for your attention throughout this comprehensive session, and I look forward to engaging with you in our upcoming masterclasses. Jai Hind.